So welcome to Malaska Golf live stream. It's our first one, and this is going to be great. We're going to do a lot more of these. And the reason I'm doing these is because, first of all, we want to talk about something that's really interesting to people that are out there. We want to also make a connection with you with what's going out there. And then we want to have a chance to answer your questions live about what's going on. I know with Malaska Golf, the Ask Mics have been very popular. And so I try to do as much of that as I can. But these live broadcasts, we're going to have a chance for you today. You're going to be able to send your questions in. And so then we can pick those questions, and then we can start answering them right here relative to if it's the Open, or if it's something to do with a shot, or it's something to do with a swing, or one of the players you see. What do you think they're going to do in the tournament? So this is really exciting for me. It's a new platform. I've done the Golf Channel multiple times live and all that. So it's something that I really enjoy doing. And we've got Matt Baker with us here today. Matt is a certified golf coach with Malaska Golf, and Matt's in England. And so he has a lot more connection with what goes on in England and in Scotland with the Open and how people connect. So Matt, thanks for being with us today, and tell us a little bit about just the atmosphere. I mean, I've been to one British Open years ago, but tell us a little bit about the people and the atmosphere and the town and what happens over there when they have one of these each year when they have these events.
All right. Well, firstly, thanks for letting me come on. It's an absolute honor to come and do this. And yeah, it's a great event. I mean, ever since I was 14 years old and learning to play the game, it helps to inspire a lot of golfers over in the UK and Europe, I think, and obviously around the world, as you know, as I see it. You can't beat the buzz of the Open. It's a little bit like when you go to Wimbledon as well. I don't know if you've ever been to Wimbledon and tennis. It has a totally different feel altogether about it. You go there and it's electric. You can feel it as you walk through the gates. You know, and as a Brit, you know, it's our Open. You know, it's something that we hold proudly because we seem to feel like we do it well. The courses are always unique in their own way, and they have a sting in their tail, which makes golf. What it's nice to see is you're having to see golfers play different shots. You're not just seeing them hitting a drive down the middle, 300 plus yards, then a high floaty wedge in, whatever it is. You're having to see them run shots in and play high shots, low shots, fades, draws. You're just seeing beautiful golf being played, you know, in a beautiful way, as I see it. And every year when we, you know, as a kid as well, growing up, every putt that I had, every chip that I had, every drive that I had was always to win the Open. You know, so you was growing up and you'd say, this is to win the Open. And it was never to win anything else. It was to win the Open. And and you always wanted to follow in the footsteps of your heroes. And, you know, for my era, it was, you know, Seve, it was Faldo, it was Greg Normans. You were following those guys because you wanted to be them and win the Open. Also, it's the history of it. You know, you can't deny that. It's the oldest event, you know, in golf, obviously. And the history of it has been, you know, grows it even more. You know, to think it was only played over 12 holes and they used to play for a belt rather than a claret jug. You know, it's when you go back to reading on the history, and as a professional, we had to learn all that history as well. You know, in our PGA exams, you know, it's beautiful to be involved in that. And even as a spectator, when you go and you watch it, and I've tried qualifying for it as well, and it's not as easy as what people think. But even going as a spectator, you feel like you're a part of it, and you feel like it's yours. And I know it sounds silly, but you walk in and you feel like you have a responsibility to make it a success. So I think as a crowd, when you're watching the crowd, they're very respectful and so on and so forth, and, you know, very well behaved. And I think that's because they feel like it's their Open. And I think that's how the R&A tend to sell it as well. It's your Open, you know, it's your event. So, and I think as a spectator, you tend to go and act that way. And that's what I tend to find. I mean, for us as well, I think the thing that really embedded it into my era was the way that it was also covered on the media. So back then it was just the BBC. So we had Peter Alliss and Clive Clark and, you know, all those guys that were covering it. And I always remember you'd get up at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning and you'd hear the music that the BBC played for it. And you just knew then that the Open was starting, and you'd be sat there in front of the TV watching it as long as you possibly could. And, you know, I'm getting goosebumps now because I can hear the music in my head, you know, and you know, Steve Ryder, who was the host, and he'd do like his little monologue at the beginning, you know, welcome to the Open. And then you'd see you wanted to see the first players tee off at, what was it, 6:35 tomorrow, isn't it? You know, that's just how it was. It's just how it was, you know, and seeing great shots and all these special things that happen in the Open and the drama as well. I think the Open offers so much drama, you know, people leaving it in pot bunkers or this, that, and the other. It really is it's a great event, I have to say.
Well, it's been like you say, all of these players have had great success, and then they've had disaster. Pretty much every single player, and it's not just little. It's like you look at Nicklaus, the fairway bunker at St. Andrews that he had. It took 3 shots for him to get out of. You know, so the very best players in the world have had success on these golf courses, and the golf courses have also just destroyed them. You know,
100%.
Yeah, you know, so it's interesting what you said too. You know, I think too, when I mean, I've been over there. I was fortunate to work for a guy named Lyle Anderson, who was the owner of Loch Lomond, and so I would go over there every year. They had the British Open, or the Scottish Open, excuse me, was at Loch Lomond for a number of years, and so then we would play that, which was a Tom Weiskopf designed, phenomenal golf course up in the mountains there, just outside of Glasgow. And then we drive back down, and Lyle also had Dundonald's, which was down close to the ocean, and we'd go down there and play, and we'd play all those different golf courses. And what was interesting to me is I've played Royal Troon, and I'll talk a little bit about what I saw when I played it. But the golf courses in Scotland, the very best, the Royal Troons, the St. Andrews, and all of them. But when you drive through these towns and they have these little 9-hole golf courses and different courses that the people can play, they're very similar to these superstar golf courses. You know, it's the same kind
100%.
of conditions. They got the same funny little bunkers, and you know, you're dealing with weather conditions that we normally don't deal with here in the United States. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, because they're going to have some pretty significant weather supposedly the first couple of days. So I found it interesting when I started to drive through, and we just stop, and here's a golf course you've never heard of, and we go play 9 holes or something, and it was very, very similar to the same kind of golf you played at the superstar golf courses.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I don't think you can drive more than a mile without popping into a golf course in Scotland. You know, they're everywhere. And you're dead right. Yeah, I mean, I've played all sorts of courses in Scotland, and yeah, you're dead right, because they mostly being links courses. It's of a similar sort of design, isn't it? Yeah, it's naturally built that way, so it's just going to fall into that category, if that makes sense. And they'll be of the same condition as well, because it's virtually the same soil. You know, and same conditions throughout. So, but yeah, there's some beautiful golf courses in Scotland and so on. And what I like about it as well, like you say, most families in Scotland will play golf. I know when I used to go and see a family, when I was younger, we used to go and stay with them. They all were members of the golf club, and they all played golf at weekends together. Probably around here, you probably wouldn't get that as much, if that makes sense. But it was almost like a condition that if you was living in that town, you had to join that golf course. Now it was very cheap. I mean, you was talking, I mean, back then it was probably £9 to be a member of a golf club. So it was very cheap back then, but they kept it very cheap in Scotland for that purpose. You know,
like you say, it is a lot more of a tradition with the cities and the towns and those little golf courses that they have, and everybody plays and they go out and hit it around, and it's interesting the mindset behind that. And the Royal Troon, when you start looking at, I mean, it started in 1878, and as you said, it was I think it started as a 6-hole golf course, and it ended up to 12.
That's right.
But, you know, you talk 1878, there wasn't any golf courses built here in America. And so, I mean, you get the 1900s that we're getting pretty early here, you know. So 1878, that's a long history with that golf course. And all those courses over there have a huge history. I mean, Royal Troon and St. Andrews had a history with Royal and Ancient, who actually got the name, and how that all processed. So I think the game is a lot more a national heritage in Europe than it is here in America. In America, it is, but it kind of came on late. You know, it didn't really hit until Palmer and those guys, where golf really took off. And golf over in Europe and in Scotland and those places has been a major part of those cities and towns for since the 1900s.
Yeah, it's been played. Yeah, obviously it has. You know, I mean, there's always a discussion that the Dutch think that they invented the game, but Scotland have tried to keep that one as well. But yeah, no, it's been played for hundreds of years over here, and it's much loved as well, which is the key thing.
All right, one of the things we want to remind everybody about as we keep going through this, if you go to Malaska Golf, what we're offering during this is you can go there, you can buy a membership, and you get a free membership that you can give away to a friend. We also have a Tee to Green prize package where this month we're giving away a driver TaylorMade QI10, a wedge, TaylorMade milled wedge, and their putter. But also along with that, I'm giving away a free Zoom lesson with me. So we've got a lot of incentive for people to be involved and watch Malaska Golf. And hopefully, like I say, with this one, we start doing more of these. We want your input as to how to make these better, because it's about me helping you and and Matt being able to help you with your games, and all of our instructors, so that you can play better golf. So that's what this is about. That's why we're doing it. So back to the golf course, you know, when you look at, it's interesting, Matt, when you look at the winners and you start now, Arthur, is it Havers? I think it was Arthur Havers was his name.
He was, yeah.
I don't know much about his game, but I do know Bobby Locke. And Bobby Locke was a phenomenal iron player and an unbelievable putter. I mean, Bob, there's been all kinds of books written about Bobby Locke's ability to putt. And I've talked to some of the older players that I know that knew Bobby Locke, that watched him play and watched him hit these, you know, these just really solid bullet iron shots. So you look at him and Palmer and Weiskopf and Watson and Calcavecchia and Justin Leonard and Hamilton and then Henrik Stenson. All these winners have been phenomenal iron players and very creative players relative to their swings. You know, when you look through those names, there's not a lot of real mechanical players there. Obviously, Bobby Locke and those guys were before it, but Palmer was a real natural. Weiskopf's swing, I knew Tom really well, and what a phenomenal guy, and what a game he had. But he was very artistic. So was Watson. Calcavecchia, great short game. Todd Hamilton, great iron player, great short game. Henrik Stenson, probably the one that was the most mechanical, but when it came to hitting iron shots and stuff, it was unbelievable. And then Phil Mickelson, who ended up, you know, with the last time the Open was over there. These guys are all artists. So I'm looking for somebody who's got that artistic ability to come up with shots and different things when the heat's on and the wind's blowing 30 miles an hour and your nerves are in your hands and you know, the whole thing that's going on there. So it's just been interesting, the history of that golf course and who's won there.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, links golf, as you know, it's a different game altogether. I mean, it can frustrate the heck out of you as well. So the person who's got a good control of themselves really makes a difference as well. I mean, you know, you can hit, I mean, I've played links before, and you hit a tee shot and you think, oh, you know, and everybody goes, oh, good shot. And then you go to pick your tee up, and the next minute they're saying, oh, tough luck, Matt. That's just bounced into a bunker on the left-hand side. You know, you're like, where's that come from? It's just going to drive you crazy. But like you say, though, there's no, I mean, I've got a list of the winners down here, and you're right. There's no accident that they know how to play different shots. They can play the left to right, the low runners, the high shots, they do it almost on a daily basis. You look at, your Phil Mickelsons and so on, they know how to use the hands and how to develop the shots. And like you say, play them. You've got to do it there. It's the only way sometimes to get the ball either on the green by bouncing it off a left hand mound or whatever it is. It's the only way, isn't it, to sometimes get them on the green to stop. You can't just float it in there, unless the weather's really soft and so on.
The other thing too, Matt, is that golf over there, that golf course. I'm like to say, I had the opportunity and the pleasure to play at one time. And you start out on the first 3 holes, and they're pretty docile unless the wind's in your face. Now, the day I played, they were downwind. But even so, the fairways over there of the Humpty Dumpties and all that kind of stuff, they aren't flat. They're always a little up and down. And you can pipe a shot, and it can hit the wrong side of a hump and kick, 100%. And it can run across the fairway, and you're in a bush or you're in the rough. You're going, what the heck was that? Or the same thing on the greens. You can hit what looks like a great shot, and it just catches one part and it gets a bad kick, and it rolls in one of those pot bunkers, and you can't even swing at it. Yeah. So the key over there with the players, I think, is the guys that can manage their emotions better than anybody else. I mean, it is a test on your emotional strength to play those golf courses under no pressure, let alone the chance to win an Open. I mean, because you can hit so many really good shots that turn out maybe not that good. It's like what Watson did when he had the chance to win the Open here a few years ago. And he told me, he says, that last shot he hit, the 8-iron he hit into the 18th green, was the best shot he's ever hit under pressure. And it hit like 3 feet too far onto the green. If it's 3 feet short of where it landed or 3 feet farther, the ball's on the green and he probably wins the Open.
Yep.
And that's kind of what golf is over there. There's a lot of, if you want to call it, good and bad bounces, but it's just the ability to, whatever it is, and take it on as a challenge, and not that you got screwed or what a bad bounce or whatever, because it's going to happen to everybody.
Oh yeah, you have to take it on the chin. You can't just, you can't cry about it or whatever. You just got to get on with it and just dust yourself off and say, right, come on, next hole, let's move on. And you hope the next hole's downwind or something, just to take the pressure off you. That's what you hope for in links golf generally. But yeah, no, you're dead right. It's the person who, I feel, that can control themselves in those positions, or they've been in that position and they're familiar with it and they know how to handle it. That's probably the key.
That comes back. Sorry, but that comes back to when you start looking at players. Scotty Scheffler. Everybody's looking at greens and regulation and all this with a lot of players, which I agree with. But Scotty Scheffler is by far the best in bounce back. So what does that mean? It means that when he makes a double or a triple or a bogey, he comes back with birdie. So that's the kind of player over there, because you've got to bounce back, because you are going to hit shots and you're going to have holes where you might hit a really good shot, it gets a funny bounce, and you're in a bush and you make a double. And that is just, it's just what it is.
Yeah. And you can guarantee it's probably going to happen to someone else as well, So you have that on your shoulders as well, to a certain degree.
When I played there, you're talking about the golf course, you head out on that golf course and you start to think, well, this is going to be easy. This is going to be a lot of fun. And then you get out there and you get to about number 6, which is a par 5, and number 7, and then you come up on number 8. Now, the day I played number 8, the wind was in our face. It was from the left into our face, and I hit a 7-iron. It's 123 yards.
Yep.
And I hit a 7-iron, and I hit it. I almost tried to lay up over there a little to the left. There's a little opening over there where you can hit it on the front left part of the green, and if you leave it short, you're okay. And I hit it on that front left edge, and the pin was over on the left side, so I was okay. But if the pin would have been all the way back on the right, or in the middle of the green over towards the right, and I hit it there, now you're taking a chance of chipping it or putting it off the green back into that bunker that's in the front of the green. And the last thing you want to do, when I got there and I looked at that coffin bunker, I mean, if you hit it in there, odds are you're going to go far enough into the bunker that you can't really get a swing at it. You're going to have that lip sitting right there, and you're going to have a hard time even getting a backswing to get it to go towards the flag. So you end up having to go out sideways. So that little teeny hole, as small as it is, if there's any wind at all, I can tell you that is one of the hardest 123-yard shots. It's kind of like the 7th at Pebble Beach. I mean, it's 110 yards, but when that wind gets blowing, it's all you want. And it's off an elevated tee, like Pebble is. So you're off this elevated tee going down to this little green, and it looks like you could throw it on the green. And I'll guarantee you, if at the end of the week, that hole's going to probably play over par.
Oh yeah, easily. It's a tough looking hole, that one. I've never played it, but people that I know that have played it have said it's just the devil. It's just the devil hidden. If the wind's up, they hate it. They're just glad to walk off, even with a 4.
No, you have to almost, a lot of times, if the wind's blowing a certain direction, you can't. If you hit the ball and it gets right in the wind at all, you can't stop it on the green. And then you play that hole, then you go to 10, or you play 9, then you go to 10. And the average player, that hole plays the hardest for the members and for an average handicap, because the gorse to carry to get to the fairway is a pretty long carry. And so they have to go over to the right, and there's very little area to hit it into the fairway. And if you come off it at all and you let it go right, and you're riding the wind left to right usually, now you're in the gorse on the other side. So, and it's 450 yards long from the back to where the tour is going to be playing. I mean, and they don't talk too much about number 10, but it's a really tough driving hole.
Yeah, funny enough, I put that down as I've made some notes, obviously, and I put down hole 10 is going to be a notable hole because as you turn, you're coming back into the wind, and it's just going to be a tough, brutal hole. I think people are going to know about it when they get on there.
I mean, it's then you go 10, 11, you stand up on 11. And like I say, when I played there, the wind was blowing left to right, and I'm standing on that back tee, and I'm looking out there, and you can hardly see the fairway. And all you can see, and the train kept going by, it's like somebody comes up to you and says, you ever wondered what a train's doing by this golf course? And all you can see is the train tracks over there. I mean, it's unbelievable how that plays into your head. I mean, you've got the gorse, and then you've got the fence, and you've got the train tracks sitting right there, and the wind's blowing over there. And you can't really go left, because if you go left, you're in the gorse on the other side. I mean, that hole there in championship golf, coming down the stretch, I mean, you just got to man up and hit 2 really good shots, because you get it in the fairway, and then the second shot out of bounds is lurking just to the right and long of the green. I mean, if you come off a shot there at all, that just, of all the holes I've played, and like I say, I only played it once, and the day I played it, it's fair. It's not an unfair hole, but you just have to hit 2 good shots. There's no way around it.
Yeah, there's no leeway on that. I mean, because normally links golf, there's a bit of leeway. You can be a little bit left or right. I mean, St Andrews, for example, you can be a little bit offline, be on the other fairway, let's say, hitting back in. But that 11th hole, you're going to really, it's going to be. I think that's going to play an active role in this week's event, because it's a tough hole.
And see, I think what our listeners and people who are watching can really understand from that hole, these guys, you have to get committed to a shot. I mean, I find it really interesting when I go play rounds with players, and I start asking them, what are they thinking about, or what are they going through? And I even went out with one of the people that I work with, and we're out there playing, and we get to this hole, and he starts telling me the history of what's happened to him on that hole before. And I'm going, wait a minute, time out. There is no history. This is just a shot. If you're living in history, I mean, you can't go there. You got to get up. You've got to find something you feel comfortable with. And it doesn't matter what shot. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've had somebody tell me, well, I'm going to hit this shot. I go, well, I've played with you now 10 holes. You haven't hit that shot once. Why are you going to try to hit it now? Why don't you go with the shot that you've been hitting? Well, this is kind of what I really think I need to hit. No. That's when you have a train wreck. So what that's going to show is these guys, when they get up there, they're so committed. They pick a shot. They're going to go with it, even if they don't do well. And I think that's something that people can learn from watching this, is that and understanding these guys are nervous too. They're not nervous. They're high adrenaline. So they're in a high energy state. but they've played so much professional golf. They've been in those situations. They realize that what's going to happen if they can get committed, they got a really good chance of pulling off a shot. If they're up there and they're halfway in their backswing and they still haven't really decided what they're going to do, that's when you have trouble.
Disaster. Yeah, totally agree. That's a great lesson there as well, isn't it? You know, see the shot, hit the shot, move on. Even if it goes wrong, you've at least achieved what you wanted to do, isn't it? You know, at the same time.
The other thing I think you see at the Open with the way these greens are, there's always ways to roll the ball up on almost every one. There isn't a bunker right in front of the greens. And when you get over in Europe and you get playing over there, I can promise you there's been a number of rounds I've played when I don't think I hit one shot over about 20 feet off the ground all day. Whether it was downwind or into the wind, because the higher the ball gets up in the air, the harder it is to control it. So you start getting these guys out there where they're 150 yards away, they may hit a 3 or a 4 iron and just hit a low buzz runner and let it run up on the green, which is a shot that people over here never practice.
No, I mean, obviously that's how links was designed. It was never designed to hit the green on the fly. It was always designed that you had to run it into the green. That's how links designers wanted it designed. You know, you had to learn that shot. So by default, in a certain way, as a junior golfer growing up, we were forced to play links golf, if that makes sense. Whenever we did a county event, or you know, a county event for us over here, which is like a state for you over there, we had to go and play generally a links golf course, and you was having to play those little runny shots, and you know, trying to flight it down, and it almost opened you up to imagination. Which you had to do. You had to learn it, and then the following week you then go and play back in like a parkland course. So you had to then readapt totally again. You know, after you've just been trying to hit these little flighty low ones, to then readapt back to normal shots.
Well, see, I would again for people who are watching. I mean, if you're out there playing, there's a lot of ways to get the ball to come down. You know, but you should go out and play. I mean, I can put it up forward, and I can do it with the angle in my right wrist. I could put the ball a little back in my stance. But what I would challenge people to do is go out and play 9 holes where you never hit a ball over 20 feet off the ground, and go around the course and see if you can do that, and hit little low hooks and hit little low fades. And the more creative you get, and the more control you have of the club face, the better player you're going to be. I don't care what level you're at. And most people, when I ask them to do that, you know, all they want to do is hit the perfect shot, whatever they think that is. They don't want to get creative and roll the ball around the golf course. I mean, I used to practice that way all the time. And I'd go out, like I say, and I would take a 5 iron or a 7 iron, and I'd play, and I'd just hit little low shots for 9 holes. And then I'd hit high shots for 9 holes, just to get more control of the club and the club face. And that makes you a better player, whatever level you're at.
Yeah, funny enough, I think when I revert back to my junior days, we used to do that anyway, just for fun. You know, we'd be a gang of us go and play together, and we'd just say, right, go on, let's try and hit low shots. You know, because we'll probably be, as a junior golfer, you spend most of your life on a golf course. You know, you're there from, your mum used to drop you off at 8 o'clock in the morning and say, right, I'll see you again at 8 o'clock at night. And you'd be there all day. But you'd be just bored, and you'd just be hitting shots like that constantly at the practice ground or on the course or whatever. You know, you'd be doing it all the time. But you don't see golfers as such. Now, golfers that I teach and so on, they'll actually almost say, "Can I do that?" Well, yes, you can. You can play those little shots if you want to. Yes, do it, learn it, and I make them do it on the screen. You know, and they're like, "Oh, I can hit it. I can hit it left. I can hit it right." You know.
Well, yeah, the more control you get of the face and the more shots you learn to hit, the better player you are. Now, again, just for a second here, we've got people that are just coming on and joining us. And make sure, you know, in Malaska Golf, if you buy a membership now on Malaska Golf, you get one free. So that's a great deal. So you're basically getting 2 memberships for the price of 1. And we've also got a great tee to green prize where we're giving away a driver, a wedge, and a putter. Now, it's the driver's a QI10, the wedge is a mill grind from TaylorMade, and the putter's one of the putters that is the most popular right now with TaylorMade. We've also got, on that package, you're getting a free Zoom lesson with me. So that makes it worth even, who knows, thousands and thousands of dollars. But, you know, make sure that you go to Malaska Golf, get involved. You know, we're trying to make give packages away to make things more interesting for people and give them a chance to win things. So just wanted to let you know about that. Now let's go back. I want to talk a little bit about the last 2 holes, especially 17. I don't know that there's the day I played, and I think they have a tee that's farther back than when I played, but I think it was like 220 or something when I played it. I think the day I played, I hit 6 or 7 balls from the tee, and I couldn't stop. I didn't get one ball on the green. And I hit pretty good shots all the time because, you know, I think can play up to 240 this year.
Yeah.
220 to 240. And the green sits up and it's long this way, and then it falls off into these bunkers. And if the wind's blowing left to right, you've got to hit a shot. You got to hold it into the wind to get it to stop on the green. I mean, it's like, and you're back there, like I say, 220, 230 with the wind blowing. I mean, it could be playing as much as 250, 260. And I mean, with the tournament on the line, I mean, that's another hole where 4 could be a really good score.
Exactly right. Yeah, you need to have a buffer before you get there, to be honest.
And if you happen to get through that hole and you go to 18, now you've got a line of bunkers down one side and a carry bunker on the right. I don't know that. I guess if you had a 3-shot lead, I guess you could play 7-iron wedge maybe, but you pretty much have to hit driver or 3-wood off the tee, or you're hitting right into the narrowest part of the fairway. And you're just going to that's another one of those holes. You just got to man up and hit a shot.
Yeah, you just got to trust your instincts and just go with it, haven't you? I mean, I know they practice, they've been practicing all week. I've been watching the practice rounds as well, and you've seen a lot of them, like you say, are hitting 3-woods off that tee because a lot of them are frightened. But the conditions have been a lot different to how they're going to be tomorrow. That's the key thing as well. So all that practice work that they've probably done on 18 might go out the window tomorrow.
Well, it is. Because what they're saying, I mean, these guys are out there practicing, and Tiger made a comment. He says, well, these practice rounds are good, but I'm just working around the greens because it isn't going to do us any good relative to how the course plays, because the wind's going to be totally different. Yeah. So it's like a whole different golf course.
Yeah. And 18 can be one of those ones that can change.
No, for sure. No, it's I mean, you're not going to lose a ball on that hole or hit it out of bounds, but that heather and that, I mean, it gets down there pretty narrow. Now these guys are going to be a lot of holes. I was watching Tiger today, and a lot of the guys, which for all of you, this is a really good option. I mean, when you're out playing and you've got a shot around the greens and the lie's pretty tight, there's a number of options. I mean, you can take a 7-iron and just hit it like a putter, and it gets in the air enough, but it's a putting stroke, so you're going to hit it solid. You're going to see these guys using a lot of what they call bump and runs. You're going to see a lot of them taking a fairway wood, taking a 7-wood or a rescue, and they just putt it because it just gets it up in the air and rolling, because the ground there, the grass is totally different. It's this, I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of a hairy, sandy base. And I mean, those little tight lies around the greens are so difficult to catch the ball solid. And then you've got, usually, if you've missed a green, what's happened is the ball rolls down a hill and then it rolls down until it stops. I mean, usually you're on a little bit of a downhill lie. So you got a downhill lie to an uphill to a green that's sloping away. Very similar, again, to what they saw at Pinehurst. So you're going to see this, and you're going to see chip and runs, and you're going to see putters. A lot of putters from 10, 15, 20 feet to 20 yards off the green on a lot of those holes.
Yeah, it's funny because a putter normally for a links player or links golfer is normally the first choice that you'd pull out. It's the number one choice you would generally pull out. And then after that, then you're looking at maybe a possible bump and run, like you say. But Tiger, I think, wasn't it, who made the fairway wood very popular, didn't he, with that sort of bump and run? Because it gives you a totally different flight, a totally different roll as well. So yeah, but putter, as you say, the old Texas wedge, if you want to call it that, they're going to be very, very popular around the greens for sure.
really
but
quickly.
also as well, playing with
Okay.
Hold that thought.
All right.
I've decided to offer up everybody that's live on this stream a special plus 25 for their entries. If they just go to malaskagolf.com and enter the giveaway and use Royal Troon as a code, they'll get an extra 25 toward the giveaway.
Wow.
So did y'all hear that? So if you go and you use the code, the Royal Troon, and you're watching this, you're going to get an extra 25 entries into the event that we have, the Tee to Green giveaway. So that's really great, and we appreciate everybody that's watching. I mean, and again, I appreciate it. It's a great opportunity for me. I love being on the Golf Channel and doing Golf Channel Live, because if I screw up here, I screw up. I mean, yeah, it's what it is. We can't cut it and stop and go over again. You just got to keep going. So I really like that. I liked it when it came to hitting shots too, because all of a sudden I'm under pressure, and you got to hit shots on TV under pressure that if you hosel one off the screen, you know, you're going to have to live with it. So there's a little bit of pressure on you to perform. So make sure you do that. That's a great offer for everybody who's watching. This whole putter thing, you know, what's interesting to me, Matt, is when I was a kid, I played on this little 9-hole golf course that had these little push-up greens, and putter was a big club. You putter in a 7-iron. We always used to chip and run with a 7-iron or putt with a putter, because a wedge, because of the lies and the greens, I mean, it was so hard to get it to not grab wrong or hit it too far and take off. So I was never afraid to use a putter. I mean, it wasn't until somebody told me, wow, you're supposed to hit a sand wedge here. I went, why? Well, because you got to hit this little lob shot. Why? Well, because that's the right shot to hit. Okay. So then as a kid, I started doing it. But the reality was, even to this day, if I'm off the green 5 feet, 10 feet, and it's pretty smooth and there's no real bad things in front of me, my first choice is going to be a putter. I mean, I think that our students have a hard time going along with hit a putter, practice the 7-wood, practice the 7-iron chip and run. That's like a putt. They always want to hit their sand. They all take them. They miss the green. They're 10 feet off the green. What's the club they grab? They grab a sand wedge. Well, that's a shot, but it's a very, very difficult, high-end, needs a lot of practice, high-skill shot.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. It's funny as well, you mentioned that. I was playing with a client the other day, and they actually asked me permission if I'm able to hit a 7-iron chip and run. And I was like, challenged them on that. I said, well, why are you asking me? You know, try it, see what happens. And they played a really good shot. But with the putter, one of the things that we say over here, and you must say over there, is your worst putt is going to be better than your best chip. So, you know, you hit a putter, you're going to get it pretty close generally than your chip.
And you know what I see too, from a technique perspective, when people take a putter and they set up to it, first of all, they hit them solid most of the time.
Yep.
So they get set up and they make a stroke and they hit the putt. As soon as you give them a lofted club, the instinct for most of our amateur friends that we're working with, as soon as you give them a lofted club, they think, oh, okay, I got to get this ball in the air. So they start trying to set up more behind it, and they start trying to get underneath the ball. And that's when they bring hit it fat, hit it thin, all that into play. When the reality is, I take a 7-iron, I'm if anything, I'm out here just a little in front of it. So I'm catching the ball and I'm letting the face of the club get the ball in the air. So when we just look at when they go from a putter and they go to a 7-iron or an 8-iron, they start thinking, that's when they start thinking, I got to get underneath it to get it in the air. And that's probably the biggest problem that they have with their short game, is that try to get it in the air and not letting the loft of the club do it for them.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, so we used to practice as well, not just with a 7-iron. We used to use from 4-iron all the way down to sand iron, and play the different shots to know how far it needed to fly in the air and roll out. There was always a guide that we had, which was a 7-iron flew for 25% of the distance and rolled for 75. 9-iron was 50-50, and a sand iron was 75 in the air, 25 roll. So there was always a rough guide, but obviously it depended on the green speed and all that business. But we used to go out there and practice 4-irons, 5-irons, 6-irons, all chipping, doing exactly the same method, trying to feel how that was around the greens and what results it gave me when I played that. And generally, I mean, even now, I still play chip and runs, as they like to call it, and I'm often a lot closer than most of my counterparts, because they're all, like you say, grabbing lob wedges because that's what they've heard you've got to do and spin it and stop it. But the 7-iron chip and run still works.
Well, but I can tell you, if somebody goes out and they hit 10 7-irons from just off the fringe to a pin that's 30 feet away, and they hit 10 sand wedges, the people that we work with, I can guarantee you that the average distance to the hole is going to be a lot better with the 7-iron than it's going to be with the sand wedge, 100%. Because you want minimum carry, maximum roll. That was kind of what I grew up with. So I was always trying to land the ball 2 to 6 feet on the green and let it run out, because I felt like I had more control. You got to be really good with a sand wedge to be controlling the spin and everything you're doing. And yeah, you see these guys doing that, but the tour players will take that sand wedge, and what they'll do with it is, by how they set up and how they use their hands, they change the trajectories and turn that sand wedge into 7 and 8 irons and all that kind of stuff. That the average person's not good enough to do that. They need to do it with that club.
100%, yeah. And you're going to see that a lot this week, I think. Definitely, for sure.
No question. I mean, you're gonna see more chip and run kind of things than big high lob shots this week than you do now.
Yeah.
If you and I are talking about players, we already talked a little bit about Scotty Scheffler. So obviously he's the #1 player in the world. He's playing better than anybody. His ability to recover he's #1. If you were going to go with anybody else, who would be your next pick?
Well, I've picked him all year, and he's done pretty well for me. Has been Bryson DeChambeau. He's played really well for me. My other pick, though, would be Viktor Hovland. I like how he plays. I like his creativity. I like he likes those golf courses. He's always done well in the past, and I know he's a bit out of form, but I feel he's due something. I always pick Rory because I quite like watching Rory. But for me, it was Bryson. Bryson, I think he's had a great year so far. He's playing well. The main thing I like about him at the moment, he looks like he's having fun with it as well. So, and I think he's in a good, relaxed state of mind.
Well, he is. And I think Bryson, he was he's obviously the scientist, and and a lot of what he's done is really good. And it's actually correct. The biomechanics, things he's worked on are really, knowing what I know about it, a lot of it makes more sense than it doesn't. And a lot of people look at it, they don't understand it. But what I like about him is he has the ability to take that driver. And there's a few holes out there, if you can carry it 350, you can carry the bunkers and stuff. So, but he has that, but he also can take that 2-3 iron out and just hit those little buzzers up there and get up around the greens. And watching him at the U.S. Open at Pinehurst, I mean, his short game was absolutely unbelievable.
Yep.
Right up to that shot he hit on 18 out of the bunker. I mean, that's going to go down as one of the greatest shots ever hit in professional golf in competition. I mean, that shot he hit was under pressure to take that ball and carry it that far out of that 60-yard. I mean, it's so easy to hit that shot fat, or he could have hit it in the clubhouse. So, I mean, Bryson, I think he's got more control of his game now, where he's gone through the part where he was going to overpower everything.
Yeah.
He was, regardless of what it was, he was going to stand there and just hit the driver as far as he could hit it. And he's kind of, for a number of reasons, he's backed off that. And now he's hitting shots and he's controlling the ball. And if he has to, he can go with that. And, he's one of the best putters out there. I mean, it's incredible. It's hard not to pick him. I mean, for sure, he's my number 1 or 2 pick.
Yeah, I've picked him all year, and he's done me proud so far. But yeah, it would be phenomenal to watch how he handles the first day. I think if he gets a good first day, I think he's going to be up there for sure.
Have you got a long shot pick that you would go?
Well, Viktor Hovland would be my long shot.
He's a long shot. He's a freaking superstar. He's not a long shot. We can't pick him as a long shot.
The other one as well, who's a lot of buzz going around at the moment, especially media over here, is Ludwig.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you who my long shot is. Who I don't know why the people aren't talking about him. It's unbelievable because the weather and the golf course off the tee is going to be very similar to what it was last year. My long shot is Brian Harman. I mean, he won it last year. This guy can freaking putt, short game, and I mean, he can drive it down a tunnel.
Yeah, true.
It's unbelievable how good this guy drives the golf ball. You know, and here's a good example for all of you out there. Harman's one of the shorter guys on tour, but he's unbelievable when it comes to how much he can control the ball, both with his driver and his iron. So it proves that you don't have to be one of the longest players. And I can't believe that more people haven't talked about him, because his game fits all of that links course, especially when it gets inclement weather and you're having to bring the ball and it's all on getting the ball in the fairway.
Yeah, I think it's just because history, you know, past winners generally don't win again, do they? To be fair, that's probably the only reason why I've not really given him a second thought, to be honest with you. But yeah, you're right. You know, if you can hit it straight, I mean, distance-wise, the ground, unless it's absolutely flooded, you're going to gain that distance anyway on links courses, aren't you? Because it's going to bound on for, you know,
yeah,
30,
he'll
50,
hit it.
100.
Yeah, that's what happened last year. He hit it as far as the guys who bombed it because they just hit it low and he'd run it out there. Now I'm going to give you my long, and this is going to kind of, I shouldn't have said for you picking Hovland was a really picking a superstar, but I'm going to pick Rahm, who nobody's talked about.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, now Rahm's a superstar, but Rahm has been like out of the spotlight. Missed the cut at the didn't play good at the Open. He's not played well in anything. Why would I pick him? Because of the weather. And that guy can hit irons and bring the ball flight down, and he can drive it low and he can run it. So, I mean, you know, that's the kind of game, those guys that have that ability to flight and bring their irons way down, and they play close to the ground anyway. And that's the kind of game he has. This guy's a phenomenal iron player and a wedge player inside of 140 yards, the way he can flight his wedges, which I think that's probably going to, you know, Rory's gotten better, but I think he struggles a little bit with the putting and a little around the greens. And then he also struggles a little bit with flighting his wedges. And on those greens, with all that wind blowing, if you can't bring that ball down with your wedges and control the spin and get it in there, if you're getting it up in the air at all, it's really hard to get the ball close.
Yeah, true. Mind you, none of us have actually picked Tiger.
Well, Tiger, if he has a chance, it's going to be, this is another one. This is even better than the Masters. I've walked this golf course. It's not a hard walk.
No,
I mean,
true.
it's a fairly long, but I mean, for him, it's pretty level. There's not a lot of up and down in the fairways. There's some, but not much. And if the weather's bad, where it's about just hit it in play and it's your irons, Tiger's still from 200 yards and in, I think he's number 1, 2, or 3 on tour proximity at every distance. So
yeah, I mean, you can't count him out. I mean, he knows how to win, doesn't he? You know, so but
it's a lot of it for these guys, and a lot of it for the Open is a function of your draw. You know, when you get to play and relative to the weather, because you can play in the morning and it can be decent, and at noon it turns around and the wind's blowing 40 miles an hour. And they'll tell you so many times, does the draw really dictate who's in position to win when it comes to the weekends?
This was Q&A.
yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, you've seen that. I've seen that hundreds of times watching the Open since I was a young lad. You know, you see how people go out there and absolutely crush, and it can be reversed the day after. So, you know, you play day one, you could have an absolute break, but then you play in the morning the following day. I mean, generally mornings you're pretty okay, but generally you can have that rough break in the, you know, the following day is horrible. You know, you could be doing really well. You see so many people that are leading the Open and then they go out the following day on the second day and they're just absolutely destroyed because the weather, you know, the tide's turned and the wind's coming in, and, you know, it just gets worse.
Well, yeah, Tiger, when they played the last time at Muirfield, had an afternoon time and the wind was blowing. It was horrific. I think he shot 80 something.
It was horrendous, yeah.
Before we go to this next part, be sure that you go to Malaska Golf. If you join Malaska Golf now, you get one free subscription. So you join, you can give a subscription to somebody else. So it's like 2 for 1. The other thing is make sure that you take a look at the tee to green prize package. That's a driver, a wedge, and a putter from TaylorMade. And it's also a Zoom lesson from me. So make sure you get signed up and get into those, and so that you can have a chance to win those. We'd love to see you take those away and be able to improve your game with all of that. We're going to start some question and answers here. We have people calling in or not calling in. Emailing, texting in. So we're going to try to answer some of the questions that we have. So I'm going to have Javier. He can give me some of the questions. So throw a question out at me from somebody.
Chen asks, can you talk about Bryson's swing, which is so different and feels so stiff and tense, and yet it works and he hits it a mile and is still accurate?
Well, so the question is about how does Bryson's swing work? He looks so tense. Well, the reality is, he's not really tense. What he's done is he's created a setup that basically puts his arm in the same position it's going to be at impact. Because when you swing a golf club, when you come into the ball, the momentum of the club pulls on your arm, and it basically does this. So Bryson has figured out how to set up in that same position, and then he puts his right hand on, and then he turns back, and believe me, he levers this wrist dramatically. And he's got a lot of explosion through the ball with this and with the rotation of his body. He just eliminates, he doesn't have the setup that you see with a lot of people, which is more down here. And the reason he doesn't is because he's going to come into the ball here. That's what everybody does. So people don't realize wherever you set up, when you come into impact, the weight of that club or the force of that club is going to flatten this wrist. So Bryson has eliminated a lot of the things that a normal setup and what most people do are going to have to deal with compensations. So plus he has a tremendous turn, and he's got a lot of strength and a lot of rotation. He uses the ground. So when Bryson comes down into the ball and he uses his legs, it accelerates that club dramatically. It's incredible what he does. So you got to be careful with what it looks like relative to what it's actually doing. And
next question. Is what pro golfer would you tell us to watch in their swing motion?
Well, it depends. See, swing motions, there isn't one right tempo. I mean, right now, probably one of the best is Oberg. I mean, if you watch him swing and you watch just the freedom of what he does, you watch him and you think, well, he's not even thinking. He just stands up there and it's a nice, free fluid motion. The reason he can do that is because he's very committed and he has a good feel for what he's going to do with his swing. There isn't a one right tempo. You have to find for you the tempo that fits. So if you're a little quick tempoed person, it's probably more of a quick tempoed swing. So you watch somebody who's a little quicker, Fitzpatrick or somebody like that, and you copy his tempo. You know, if you're somebody who walks slow and you don't talk too fast, then you copy somebody who has a little longer, smoother swing. Ernie Els was always one that everybody wanted to copy. So the key for people and players is to find the tempo that you're the best at and then learn how to duplicate it.
This next question goes to both Matt and Mike from O'Brien and Gott. Hello, Matt and Mike. So who is going to win the Open? Kind of already covered it.
No, I'm going Bryson.
Bryson.
I mean, I just right now he's got the confidence, he's got the game, he's kind of as Matt was saying earlier, he seems to be really comfortable and relaxed with what's going on. I think I'd be betting on him.
I concur to that as well. Definitely.
So we're going together on that one. Okay. All right. So we've had a lot of other questions and some other things about the golf courses and the setup. We've covered a lot of that. And when you start talking about golf in England, you're talking about very firm conditions, open in front of the greens, a lot of wind. So that means bring the ball down. Now, what's interesting here in America, if it's a real windy day and people don't want to go out and play. And in Europe, I mean, you go over there and the wind's blowing 20 and it's raining a little bit and you're sitting there going, I don't know if I want to go out. And they're going, what are you talking about? This is nice. Because the weather over there is so different than it is here. And they learn, which I think is interesting, the European tour players also learn to play in more difficult conditions more of the time. Now, that's not to say that the Americans aren't good at it, but the Europeans play in it a lot more. And so it's just like part of the deal. I mean, so what I used to do when I was playing tournaments, if you'd get to a golf course and somebody was complaining about the rough or the speed of the greens or something about the golf course, or, oh man, look what the weather's going to do, I always felt like that person was gone, because I mean, if the golf course was not in good shape, everybody had to play it. If the weather was bad, most everybody's going to have to. So it didn't do any good to complain about something bad. It just is what it is. And if you watch these tour players and you ask them about weather conditions, you ask them about whatever it is, they'll just say, well, you just deal with it. I've been playing golf my whole life. I've dealt with it my whole life. So it's just something that you learn to deal with, which is something else I was going to say. And I want to get that in before we're through, and we're just about through here. One thing you need to practice, if you want to be a good player, you're going to go places where the weather's not good. So go out on the range on a decent day and put your rain gear on. Take your rain jacket out, put it on, and hit some shots. Or go out to the range, put your whole rain gear on, put a turtleneck on when it's not 110 like it is here in Phoenix right now. But go out and actually practice in cold weather gear, because unless you practice in it and you get used to it, when you put it on and you haven't had it on for a long time, I don't care how good the rain gear is, all of a sudden it's a different feel. Everything sounds a little different. You make a swing, and they've done a great job. I know that Adidas has done a great job with their rain gear to where it's almost like wearing a shirt. So it doesn't feel like the old rain gear where it rattles and it has a lot of noise to it. But even so, it's a different feel. So I would encourage you to go out and hit some balls with your rain gear on. The other thing it'll do is if you hit balls with your rain gear on and it doesn't fit you right, you go, well, this doesn't fit me. Okay, well then get some that does, because you're going to have to wear it at some point in time somewhere, especially if you play a lot of golf. Now, if you're just playing recreational golf and you play vacation golf, you probably aren't going to have rain. It isn't going to matter. But if you're looking at competing, you've got to practice competing in all conditions before it happens. Because if it happens and you're not used to doing it, what happens to you mentally? Now you're worried about it mentally, and now you're in trouble because it's something you're not used to doing. So in closing here, I just want to make sure you go to Malaska Golf, buy or get involved, buy a membership, get one free, get involved in the tee to green, and that's going to be a tee to green. That's a driver, a wedge, and a putter from TaylorMade, and a free Zoom lesson with me. Thank you so much for joining us. Look forward to your comments so we can make sure that we make these events even better and better for you as the person watching.
You got one more answer for you for one more question?
Oh, I got it. Sure. Give me one more.
Okay. So Jim Pringle asks, hello, Mike and Matt. Can you speak to shoulder tilt during the swing? There's not much discussion about it that I can find in the M system or otherwise regarding posture, side tilt, etc. Well,
Matt's sitting down, so I'm going to have to take this one. Okay, so shoulders. Your shoulders work like this. This is ideal. And when you're looking at your upper body, this is like a box. So your hip sockets, your shoulder sockets are in a box, okay? So I'm doing this. So when I bend, my right hip, my right shoulder, this is still in a box. So this is going like this. The worst thing that can happen is if you bend like this, and let's say your shoulders go like this, but your hips go flat. Or you go back and you start down and your right hip comes up and your shoulder goes down and you create a lot of side bend. Now, I know there's guys that teach that now. But if you want to hurt your back, the easiest way to hurt your back, if you talk about physiologists or kinesiologists and physiologists relative to the back, if you said, okay, I want to hurt my back, how could I do it? They'd say, well, side bend, go into flexion, and twist. Okay, so you want to eliminate as much of this side bend as you can. So when you're turning, my shoulders work just like this. Okay, when I bend, my shoulders and my hips work like this. That's what I'm trying to do. What I don't want is my hips doing one thing and my shoulders on a totally different. The closer to parallel those two shoulders and hips can be, the less chance for injury and the easier it is for your body to move. So I hope that answers your question. I think there is a lot about that on the M system. We do talk about that. And I'm glad that you said that. And these are the kinds of things I want to know. I want to know what interests you. Believe me, I've been through this. There's very few swing methods I don't understand that I probably didn't do myself. So I want to help you to understand what is the easiest way for you to reach your potential in the game. That's what the M system's all about. That's why I keep doing this. So again, thank you for being with us. Send us an email, send us text. Let me know what I can do to improve. And look forward to the next one.